Welcome to the Everything Financial Radio Show. I am your host, Dennis Tubbergen. You are listening to the Legacy Radio Network. Glad you're with me today. Have a great show lined up for you. Very, very pleased to have Congressman Bill Huizenga joining us today. Congressman Huizenga represents Michigan's 2nd District over on the beautiful shoreline here in West Michigan. And we are going to talk to Mr. Huizenga about what the Federal Reserve is doing, about the mountains of debt that exist in Washington, what the political environment is there to deal with entitlements. Very, very glad that Congressman Huizenga in this election year has taken some time out to join us here once again on the Everything Financial Radio Show. Congressman Huizenga was a guest about a year ago, so very glad to have him back. We will be talking to him momentarily, so stay tuned for that. Also, housing prices continue to slide and more signs of an economic winter. One of the United States' major cities is considering selling its historic landmarks to the highest bidder. I'll share that with you. Also, Spain may be close to default, according to Citigroup's chief economist. And based upon what happened in the Supreme Court this past week, if we read the tea leaves, can we conclude that Obamacare is dead? I'll talk to you about that. Also, Europe continues to play its unsustainable shell game. The levels of debt that exist in Europe continue to go up in spite of the bailouts. I'll give you some details on that as well. Quick reminder, this is the last week that our 2012 Market and Economic Outlook Home Study Kit is available. To get your free copy of the Home Study Kit, go to investingapproach.com. That's investingapproach.com to get a copy absolutely free of our 2012 Market and Economic Outlook Home Study Kit. Again, investingapproach.com. Also, we have discovery groups coming up. April the 10th, we will be over in Spring Lake at the Spring Lake Country Club. On the 12th of April, we'll be at the Watermark Country Club here in Grand Rapids. And on Thursday, April the 19th, we'll be out in Belmont at beautiful Boulder Creek Golf Club. If you have not yet attended a discovery group, we will explore the question, could everything you've learned about the economy and money over the last 30 years be wrong? You'll find the discovery group, I think, very informative. And if you have not yet attended a discovery group, go to personallegacyseminars.com to get more information. That's personallegacyseminars.com to get more information. We talk about the current economic winter environment, what it might mean for you and your money, and we explore the notion that a lot of the economic growth that we've experienced over the last 30 years may have been an illusion because it has been fueled by debt. So once again, Spring Lake on April the 10th, Watermark Country Club in Grand Rapids on April the 12th, Boulder Creek Golf Club April the 19th, and you can go to personallegacyseminars.com to get more information. I am pleased to have with me on the Everything Financial Radio Show again. With me, he was on about a year ago, Representative Bill Huizenga. Representative Huizenga represents the 2nd District of Michigan. He is a businessman. He got, I believe, his start in politics. He can correct me, serving in the Michigan House of Representatives, and he's elected to his first term in Congress in November of 2010. He serves on the House Financial Services Committee. And Representative Huizenga, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure, Dennis. It's hard to believe it was a year ago.
A year ago. The clock stops for no one.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, Bill, in the speaking that I do at seminars and focus groups, the majority of those in attendance believe the national debt is just too large to ever be paid. What would you say to our listeners who are of that mindset?
Well, they've got good reason to be afraid, but I haven't given up hope quite yet. And I have that exact same concern, and quite honestly, that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is to not let it get that far. And I think if you just look at the philosophies here that are at work, and they're very different and very much competing philosophies. And in general, my philosophy and the philosophy of most of my Republican colleagues is one where we have to do a couple of things. One of those is constrain our spending, but the other is to create an atmosphere that's going to allow for economic growth, because that is the real key here. We've got to make sure that we are we are growing our economy and growing that pie. It's not a static set of numbers. It's not a static set of parameters. It is something that can grow and contract, and it's our job to make sure that it has the opportunity to grow.
Bill, the president has put forth a budget with a deficit of $1.3 trillion, in spite of the fact that 4 years ago it was promised that deficit would be cut in half. And given some of the recent polls dealing with the popularity of Congress, a lot of Americans are obviously very cynical that the political will exists to deal with this problem. Then we see a budget submitted with a deficit of $1.3 trillion. Given that you're in the trenches every day, what's your view of the political will to actually tackle this deficit and debt problem?
Frustrated, quite honestly. And you're right. I mean, we've seen a 27% increase in federal spending since President Obama has gotten in the White House. The economy hasn't grown or shrank by that much. It's just a tremendous amount of money, and we've got to get a handle on it. So as you're pointing out, though, what is the likelihood that the political will exists? Well, at some point or another, you have to put your money where your mouth is, and we've seen a lot of lip service and not a whole lot of action. We are trying to change that tone and tenor here in Washington from the House side. However, we're one of three of the legislative legs of the stool that need to work together. And if you don't have a Senate who's frankly willing to pass a budget, much less actually constrain their spending, and a president who's not willing to do that, it makes it very, very difficult. We can pass whatever we want in the House. I'll be voting for as most aggressive budget that I possibly can, and just as I did last year. We will probably settle on something more along the lines of what Paul Ryan has proposed, and which is good. It's certainly much better. In fact, that was a article in the Wall Street Journal or an editorial today on the 27th. Where they were talking about it. Do we need to go further, faster? I would like to see that. I do think, though, that there's some of my colleagues, both sides of the aisle, that just either feel they can't or won't be able to go that far.
Last week on the show, I interviewed Professor Lawrence Kotlikoff, who is a former economic advisor to President Reagan, been around for a long time. He's actually, as you may know, running for president on the third-party America's Elect ticket. And he said that he has calculated the fiscal gap to be over $200 trillion, and he defines fiscal gap as simply the national debt plus all the unfunded or underfunded liabilities of programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Can you share with the listeners, in the time we have left this segment, Congressman, some of the ideas being discussed as to how to deal with this gap and these unfunded or underfunded liabilities of all these entitlement programs?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's stunning to me. We do have, and I call them a group of debt deniers. There's a group of people that truly believe we don't have a serious debt problem. And they said, well, you can't count all that stuff that we owe ourselves. You only can count what we owe others. It's like, well, that is not how it works. Because if you ran your books that way as a company, guess what? IRS is going to come down hard on you, and we certainly can't do that with our own budget. So why in the world would we? If we're not letting a state do that, why would we let the federal government do that? So, but they are out there, we've got a couple of things that drive it. One is our short-term spending. The other is the long-term entitlement spending. And at the end of the day, Dennis, we have got to deal with Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security on the long term. Let's just take Social Security. I mean, it's a system that was set up when life expectancy was 67, not the 78, almost 79 years old that it is now. Certainly not the almost 100 years of life expectancy that my kids are going to experience. The system just simply is not able to handle it or keep up with it, and that's why we've been piling this mountain of debt on our kids and grandkids. because we have gone out and just literally been throwing IOUs in a drawer, and that part's got to stop. So how do you deal with that, both on the short term and the long term? The short term is you've got to have some fiscal restraint, near-term fiscal restraint. And as we were talking about, the president's increased spending by 27% since he's been here. So it's time to trim some of that back. The other element is how do you reform entitlements? And I think at some point or another we have to look at retirement ages. We have to look at income qualifications and those kinds of things. You know, I'm pretty sure that Warren Buffett's going to be okay if he doesn't get a Social Security check. I don't want to just take money away from him. There's got to be a way that, for the system that he has paid in, maybe he gets that money back out, but not more. And that's part of the problem. If you talk to any actuarial, they'll tell you that most people are actually pulling more out of the system than what they put into it. So we've got to look at who actually is qualifying for this safety net. If you don't need a safety net, maybe it shouldn't be there. There's a lot of issues that we're going to have to deal with. The worst case scenario is one that frankly the Social Security Administration has put on the table already, where they're saying that there is going to be a reduction in those benefits. Instead of the 100% that they were projecting people are going to be getting, it's going to be 78%. And we can't suspend the laws of mathematics. It's going to have to work out one of those ways.
We are chatting with Representative Bill Huizenga on the Everything Financial Radio Show. We'll continue our conversation when we return after these words. Stay with us.